on now, squeezes, steps up in the pocket. Elway can run. Inside the 10. Head first. He flies off the 5-yard line. My goodness.
Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, and it's still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
Manning out of the gun. Manning lets it fly. It's caught by Thomas. There's the record for Peyton Manning.
The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him free to the 30, to the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
And welcome to the show. My name is Mundungus Creevy, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host Glenn, Bronco Bill, and Boggins. Obviously not, as always, with Bill. But hey, Bill. And you are currently tuned in to the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast filling you in on all things Denver Broncos. So how's it going today, fellas?
Good.
Doing great. I like how Bill's repping the other brand, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's mixing and matching. Come on, Bill, pick one or the other.
Well, I could, but I got an Avalanche jersey, but it's 87 degrees here right now, so I don't feel like putting it on, even though it's not 87 in the house, but still. So I went with the lighter, and it's Broncos Talk, so I got to represent both.
All right, so jumping in it, whatever. I'm just gonna go with it. Jumping in it real quick. Just hot and bothered off the top of the show. The DA is dropping charges against Jerry Jeudy. So that is solved. That is fixed. Yes, I see you yelling at me. Hi. Sorry, my kids. Yeah, the DA is dropping all charges against Jerry Jeudy. So we have him for the season for now, unless something else happens. But I don't see anything else happening.
What about a possible suspension or something? I heard that the NFL commissioner is looking into personnel conduct detrimental to the league. What if he could still be up for suspension?
Not a chance, man.
Well, but that would have to be if there was domestic violence, though, right? And they basically came out and said there wasn't any physical violence, no domestic violence. It was just filed under that because they were together, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had that enhancement because of their relationship.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't expect anything to come of it, really. It seemed like a civil dispute.
Yeah. Next big thing about the Denver Broncos, Billy Thompson is retiring. He spent 13 years as a player on the Broncos, 45 years altogether with the team in front office positions, coaching positions, whatnot. And he is retiring after 45 years. So, happy retirement, Mr. Billy Thompson. You'll be joined here by Bill and Glenn here real soon.
Retirement's still an option.
Bill, what was Billy like in high school? Do you tell us your favorite story?
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
Wow.
Bill and Bill.
That'll be the Bill and Bill show. That'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
let me just say something about Billy Thompson. Though. I mean, the guy. Yeah, let's give him his due.
Yeah.
He came out in 1969, was a member of the Orange Crush defense, played in Super Bowl 12,
really?
Ring of Fame. Just the guy was a true leader. Stayed in the community, owned some Burger Kings after retiring, and has been with the team as well. I mean, hats off to Billy. The guy was a true leader. He's one of those players that is mentioned as a fringe Hall of Famer for the Broncos. So, 40 interceptions in his career. Hope he enjoys his retirement and I'm sure he'll be sticking
a Ring
around.
of Famer, right?
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. Yeah, he definitely is.
All right, so kind of going into the current goings-on of the Denver Broncos with OTAs. I just had it pulled up and I forgot. Oh, okay. So during the press conferences, Nathaniel Hackett was asked about Baron Browning. said that he's going to be playing inside linebacker in a pinch. So he's basically a full-blown edge at this point, right?
They said they were going to spend time. I mean, he specifically, the question was whether he was going to be, splitting his time. And Hackett said they were going to be having him at edge, essentially exclusively to learn that position. So that joining that in a pinch, that was, I think, one of those last case scenarios.
I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I think the only way is like in a dime package or something when you have just a single linebacker in there and it's probably not going to be Baron Browning and you just decide to, I don't know, have him on the outside. But even then you're going to have Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb, or like you're really going to rotate him out. I mean, I guess it's definitely a more valuable position than inside linebacker. I just don't know why you would take one of your potentially best players off the field. It's just kind of weird, but we'll see. We'll see how it is. I like I said, I'll believe it when I see it.
Boggins, do you think it's one of those situations where they don't believe that Gregory and Chubb are going to be on the field much together, and they need to have a stud?
I don't know about that. I think they maybe are looking at his athleticism and maybe like the value for the future, and that Bradley Chubb is, going into the last year of his contract, and we don't really know. Like he has to have a year in order to get anything close to what his market would be. And so I think you're really looking at potential future in Baron Browning at edge, which I would be fine with if we didn't have the roster we had right now. If we didn't have Randy Gregory, I would understand it a lot more than we currently do, because we put stock into getting Randy Gregory, and then we drafted Nick Bonito. So it just seems like we're putting a ton into the edge room. And if there's going to be a lot of stylistic blitzing going on or some crazy schemes drawn up, I'm all here for it. But I mean, in a perfect world, I'd like to see him more used as like a Micah Parsons style, just kind of everywhere. Just take your most athletic guy and put him wherever is a mismatch.
So how are we seeing edge play out then? Because I mean, you've got basically 4 to 5 starters at edge right now. I mean, you've got Chubb, you've got Gregory, you've got Jonathan Cooper, who was really good last year. Now you've got Nick Bonito, and now you've got Baron Browning. I mean, you're looking at Malik Reed. I mean, you're looking at 5 or 6 potential starters on any other team at edge.
I don't see. I think Malik Reed is going to be the odd man out. I think that he might not make the squad. I think Jonathan Cooper was decent last year. I think he definitely showed some pop, especially for a 7th rounder. I definitely see him more as a depth piece. But who knows? I mean, maybe he will, surprise everybody. That'd be crazy. But at the end of the day, the more edges, the merrier, right? So you're just kind of, especially when you can get him into rotation, like a Shaq Barrett situation, years back. Everyone, I think people remember Shaq Barrett, right? I'm not quite sure. Do Broncos country? Do we remember Shaq Barrett? Because I feel like people have mentioned him before. Okay, well, that's kind of like the same situation. That's what they hope for at least, where it's just like a constant rotation of legitimate pass rushers.
Now, Boggins, you did mention, though, that you can't have too many edge rushers. But is that because they don't really trust Bradley Chubb?
Can you repeat that last part? Sorry.
I was going to say, you mentioned that you can't have too many edge rushers. But is that because they don't really trust Bradley Chubb?
I don't know about trust. I mean, he has had injury concerns in the past, and he hasn't really. He's decently produced, but not anything up to his draft stock. So I think it's more of insurance, I guess, and just to have the depth there, because Chubb gets tired out, send in Baron Browning, you know what I mean? You're just constantly rotating these fresh edges where it's just going to be like a problem, and maybe it won't even be like a starter situation. Maybe it'll just be in constant rotation. So they're just like always fresh, always going, always moving. And then those tackles on each side of the of the other team are really going to get tired out.
And do you welcome that, or would you rather have one solid player there?
I welcome it if the inside linebacker play is legitimate. I mean, like I definitely value the edge a lot more than I do inside linebacker, especially in the scheme that it seems like we're going to be going to, where it's going to be more of like a 6 DB set, where inside linebacker is going to be more of, just chilling in the middle of the field, like just in a certain coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So I see where they would go or why they do that if they do end up doing that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Now, Glenn, you and I we were talking earlier about some Mario tweets about the coaching position last year. What did you want to bring up that Mario was filling us in on?
Well, let me read exactly what he wrote, because it just is one of those situations where you're realizing what a lost opportunity we had last year, even with the quarterback situation, even with the coaching. Mario wrote, just in case you all need a reminder about how truly awful Shermer was last year, Jerry Jeudy told me that Shermer very seldom called plays where Jerry ran a route past 10 yards. He mostly ran slants, digs, and hitches. He also rarely let JJ run double move routes. Shermer said that the double moves took too long and were, quote, too slowly developing. In the final home game against Kansas City, Shermer told JJ, quote, we should have gotten you the ball more this year. Jerry also said the wide receivers would pray that they would get more than 2 or 3 targets on game day. And then, they also had faith in Teddy as quarterback and as a receiver room, and that they could have gotten to the playoffs had the coaching been better. I mean, that's just malpractice. I mean, when I read that, I was just like, this guy should never have another job in the NFL after, mishandling a potential superstar like he did last year. And I understand Jerry got hurt in the first game, missed some games, but that's no excuse. I mean, the guy had no touchdowns last year.
Glenn, I got a question to that. My question is, why would the Broncos hang on to a Pat Shermer, or why would they not say, hey, you need to change up what you're doing? Because obviously it didn't work, and the players were concerned, and the fans were frustrated, and I'm wondering why they kept him around. Who do you think pulled that trigger, or didn't pull the trigger, I should say?
I mean, it's got to be Peyton, right? I mean,
that's what I would think.
What do you guys think?
I mean, I personally think that Peyton coming into last year, I mean, it was his first year. He's coming into a new situation. He's never been GM before. He hasn't, he knew Shermer from past workings, and, was getting to meet Vic, and just kind of wanted to see everything out. Like, if we've learned anything from Peyton, he is a patient dude. Mm-hmm. And I honestly think he did the most non-emotional thing. Like, as fans, we get emotional, we get mad, we see stuff, but like, if a GM were to just go off of what fan reaction would be, that wouldn't be a good GM. Mm-hmm. And I think he let it play out, and he just wanted to see it for himself. He didn't want to come into it just going off of what he had heard. He wanted to actually see what was going on in the locker room, see what was, going on in the building. And, I mean, that's my guess. And so he just, and there's no real good benefit of pulling a offensive coordinator halfway through a year. Like, you're not going to get much different. You're not going to rewrite the whole entire playbook. Even if you fired the offensive play caller, you're still going to have pretty much that playbook, and then just kind of adjust it slightly throughout the year. So he just was, again, patient with it and just let it run its course. And now we have moved on.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of last year, was like, Payton's going to come in, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then readjust in the off season. So I never thought that he would fire anyone. I hoped he would. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when Shermer was out for that game, we had who the heck
Mike
did we
Shula.
have? We had Shula.
I was just going to say
that wasn't any better. That might have even been worse. So it's like, even if you fire him, who do you go to?
Yeah.
There's no other options on the team that's going to be any better than what Shermer was doing. So,
and it was
see what works, see what doesn't work. You get rid of him.
It was widely reported too that Peyton likes to give his coaching staff control, like give them what they want. Like they wanted Teddy Bridgewater because they wanted someone that was a veteran to be in there, and Shermer had worked with him before, and it was just kind of a thing they wanted. So that he's going to give them what they want to try and make them successful. Because I mean, it's what a good GM would do. They're not going to like. If your coach comes to you and is like, I want this player, you shouldn't be like, no, I know better. You know what I mean? Like you should be able to work with your coaching staff, and that's what he was trying to do.
But did we lose?
Pan out.
Do you think we lost a year of Jerry Jeudy's potential? I know that we didn't have a viable quarterback, whether it was Locke or Bridgewater, but did Jerry Jeudy lose a year of potential, what he's going into now?
I don't know about I think we did lose a year of I mean, he was injured for a bit of it, but I don't know if we necessarily I mean, I guess we lost potentially a year of production from him for sure. I don't know about growth because I can't really quantify how much he felt like he grew during that time, but production for sure. That was evident from Sutton, and I mean, I guess the only one that had a decent production year was Tim Patrick out there. I mean, that's about it.
You got to put a positive spin on it. You got to look at it and say, okay, now Jerry knows what not to do.
True.
But like Peyton was able to successfully extend Sutton and Patrick with that coaching staff still in place. So I mean, obviously there was some honest conversations that had to have gone on in order to get them to remain as Broncos moving forward. But I mean, I really believe that if Mike Shula had come out and distanced himself from Shula in that game that Shermer had COVID, that after the Cleveland Thursday night game, there may have been a change made. But when it was so bad, it really left us no option that made sense to go back.
Yeah. So basically, we just buried the year. We just went with
which is fine if you look at where we're at. Like would we have had if we had made the playoffs or been deeper in the first round? Would we have to give up more capital or another player to get Russell, or was the fact that we were drafting 9th in the first round this year? I mean, it just things happen for a reason. I know we're just talking about it just because it's just it makes a lot of sense when you read what Mario had to say, about what happened last year. But I mean, onwards and upwards, this team looks absolutely stacked.
Yeah. And so going from what happened last year into what's going on this year, we have a little bit of an update on some ownership, which Boggins just sent to us over text by Mike Kliss. So thanks, Boggins. Second round bids to buy the Broncos are due by Monday. Now we have 4 groups that are expected to make bids. The first one is Rob Walton with Greg Penner. I'm assuming that they're in together.
That's his son-in-law. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then
I think he lives in Denver or in Colorado too.
Yeah.
So
isn't he the one that lives out in Thornton?
I think so.
Walton has 2 sons that live in Colorado also.
Yeah.
The second one is Josh Harris. And those were the 2 big ones that we talked about, Josh Harris and Rob Walton. The third one is Jose Feliciano, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the other names that are with that in that group. Look that up yourself. The fourth one is Matt Ishbia. Did I say that right?
Sure.
And then Byron Allen is part of a 5th group, but considered a long shot. So
yeah,
it looks like it's going to come down to Rob Walton, Josh Harris, like we thought. And do we even think that Josh Harris can keep up with Rob Walton?
I honestly think it's going to be it's Walton's to lose. Like if he wants the team, it's his team, unless because it still has to go through approval by the NFL after the bid is complete. But like I don't see why they would shut it down. So I mean, it's Walton's if he really wants it, and which seems like he's gonna essentially buy it and then pass it off to his son-in-law, which is kind of what it is sounding like, which would be interesting, especially since they're Colorado resident, which I like more. That's for
Absolutely.
sure. Seems like it gives a little more tie to the area. But yeah, and I also think with Walton's brother-in-law being
Stan Kroenke,
Kroenke, that it makes it more of a competitive situation where it's like I don't think he's in it just to prove a point. Like I think maybe to prove a point, but not like that he has the money to do this if he wanted to. Like I think like he legitimately wants to purchase this team to get
one of Walton's kids actually just bought a lot, a good size acreage in Cherry Hills Village for over $20 million, which was the second biggest transaction in real estate in that city or the town after Russell Wilson, actually. So
does it have
moving on, but his two kids are very involved in the community. It looked like
the Waltons are about to take over Colorado.
That's right, Walton Mountain.
4 bedrooms and 13 bathrooms, just to one up Wilson in his house.
Wouldn't you go with 5 bedrooms and 12?
No.
You would keep adding to the bathroom.
Just add the bathroom. Don't add the bedroom.
Which makes sense since most times I'm calling you, you're in the bathroom. So
True. That is true. Now, one thing that we didn't cover last week's show, and this is going to encompass the whole NFL, not just the Broncos, but we wanted to talk about the most improved team in the NFL this offseason so far. After the draft, after the first round of free agency, who do you believe is the most improved NFL team? And go.
Honestly, I think we are. I mean, not to say we had the best draft, not to say we had the most complete players, but the fact that we got our franchise quarterback without giving up some major assets and other players to be in Super Bowl conversation, I think we are. I mean, there are other teams that did well. I mean, I'm not gonna add them in case you guys want to throw those in, but I'd say the Broncos definitely skyrocketed up that list.
Well, I think first and foremost, it has to be Denver because we totally upgraded our quarterback position. Definitely. Mm-hmm. We upgraded our tight end position with Dulwich. We also, we stockpiled, players that we have for reserve or for filling in or for, and then also for trade down the road if we need it. So I think Denver, definitely upgraded in the quarterback position overall. To me, that's yet to be seen. We still have to see the product on the field, but hopefully, I would have definitely say Denver.
Yeah, I can homer with it too, and I'll say Denver just because the quarterback is the most important position on the field, and Russell Wilson is not just a great football player; he is a great leader, and so I expect him to produce on the field, and that's something that we have been lacking very much of at the quarterback position for the last 6 years. So I also believe in the rest of the roster. So I think we are the most improved just because of the quarterback position. However, I do think that outside of the Broncos, I would have to say the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, are probably the most improved. I know that the biggest wild card is, of course, Jalen Hurts, but they have kind of just added so many pieces around that it just seems like a completely different team. You already have decent running back play with Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, but you also just traded for AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. You still have Jalen Reagor there, whatever he can produce. You have Dallas Goedert there at tight end. You have you have a decent offensive line, and then you have a ridiculous front four. And then you just added Jordan Davis to that front four. So you already have Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Derek Barnett, and then you added Jordan Davis. Like, that's just monstrous. And then you added James Bradbury to pair with Darius Slay on the outside. I mean,
well, what about Indianapolis?
Yeah. I mean, if you still believe in, I think Matt Ryan is definitely going to be
Upgrade.
Slight upgrade to what they had with Phillip Rivers a few years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be like crazy difference. I mean, their best receiver is
Pittman.
Yeah, Michael Pittman, who I think is solid. I'd probably compare him to a Cortland Sutton, but then after that, they don't really have a ton of offensive weapons outside of the best running back in the league, which is Jonathan Taylor. But yeah, I think they did get they drafted Jelani Woods, who may do something.
Yeah. Mine was I basically had the same thing. Like, I didn't necessarily go with Denver just because I know that the biggest upgrade they made was Russell Wilson. And the rest of the roster, I mean, we thought last year that Denver's roster was a playoff roster aside from what we'd get from the quarterback. So I also had the Eagles. That Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens, Jacoby Dean, AJ Brown adding into everything they already had. So I went with the Eagles personally. But
this is the first time you've been able to say Cam Jurgens' name without a tear coming down your cheek.
Yeah,
there was a little one.
I do think Case by Case in the comments has a good one too. Unfortunately, the Chargers I think have definitely added quite a few pieces with Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. Those are two big ones, and then their secondary is pretty terrifying, and so is their pass rush. So it's definitely something that's a bummer. That's for sure.
Yeah. One thing I failed to mention with the Broncos is the change in coaching as well. I mean, just the culture shift, a positive nature, just an energy. You hear the term juice being thrown out.
Yeah.
And actually, they were saying juice last year, but it was prune juice. I mean, it's like
now it's fruit punch.
Personally, that could be kind of taken either way. I think for me, as far as new coaching staff, especially them being so new to it, it's kind of like it could go either way. It could be a positive, it could be a negative. But like as far as like the energy in the room is definitely a positive. But whether or not that translates on the field is yet to be seen.
It was neat though. In the press conferences today, Kareem Jackson was one of the players that was made available, and apparently, like, the person that trash talks Kareem the most is Hackett, and so on the offensive side, and so Kareem was asked if he has to basically like hold himself back because he'd be trash talking the coach. He goes, I don't hold myself back on anything. So I would love to hear, what is said. He goes, he knows it's all in fun. He goes, this is something I look forward to, when I come into work, I look forward to that. And that's cool. I mean, how often does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the other things that was kind of talked about going with improved was Nathaniel Hackett talking about Lloyd Cushenberry. And how he threw his support behind Lloyd Cushenberry. And Boggins, you had said that it wasn't so much the mental aspect of what he needed to do. It was the physicality and the strength.
Yeah.
It wasn't really meshing with how he needed to play.
Yeah. In the presser, he was talking about like he's a smart kid essentially, and like coming out of LSU, that was his bag. Like he was a smart dude. He was playing with Joe Burrow. Like he knew that offense. The problem is like everything else. Like he wasn't overly athletic, wasn't overly quick, wasn't overly strong. So he doesn't really, in that position, it's good to be intelligent, obviously, because you are one of the centerpieces of the offense. But like you would prefer them to have at least be really strong, like a Nathan Muti, who is like ridiculously strong. You at least like to have something like that to work off of. But I mean, I haven't seen any of that yet. But who knows? Maybe he will surprise all of us, and that would be absolutely fantastic. I'm here for it. I'm sure Hackett has seen a lot more of him than we have. but he is also the head coach and probably is just, fluffing everybody up. So
Yeah,
and hopefully that's not happening on the practice field. But it'd be interesting to hear what Russell would have to say about Cushenberry and the San Diego trips and what kind of reports he could give to Hackett about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, oh, you mean like an impressor and like personally?
No, just behind the scenes. Because Cush was there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, and I'd always held, or at least was talking about and hoping that the Broncos would bring in like J.C. Treader at center. I mean, do we actually think they're sticking with Cushenberry? Are we going to see Wattenberg at all? Or
no, I think
because I've also seen. I don't remember who I want to say it was DNVR. They listed or NFL.com. They listed Glasgow as the starting center.
I mean,
season.
Well,
yeah, I don't see that, but maybe. I don't even know if he's gotten any work at center yet. But I mean, could be. He's had experience at it. Hasn't in years, but he has had experience at it, and he is bigger and stronger. So,
well, if Hackett is praising Cushenberry, that sounds to me like he may be the day one starter if things continue.
Yeah.
Phil, he was praising Mike Purcell too, and a lot of people think that he could be a cap casualty. So, like,
and that's the thing. And I've told this before. Like, how much do you read into the coach's press conference when they're talking about a player, right? Because it's not like they're going to go in there and bash him.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much do you actually read into it?
Not a ton, especially with Hackett. I mean, Hackett's, like I was saying before Glenn went into a weird direction. But, he is a fluffer. He is
just not on the field.
Yeah, he will talk big about his boys, which is like you respect as a coach or as a fan watching that, and you love to see. And as a player, if you're a player, you love a coach who, a coach who like thrives off of positive affirmation, right? But I take it with a grain of salt for sure. I do expect him to be the starter just because I haven't heard much about anybody else being in the conversation for it. So that would be my guess.
Okay. Well, and you got to think that like Peyton pulled him aside when they first hired him. Was like, listen, tell them nothing. Tell them nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So going into players that we have on the team, we have a lot that carried over from last year. I want to know, currently on the Broncos roster, who is the most overrated and who is the most underrated Broncos player on the roster? I will start. So I think the most overrated player is Bradley Chubb. Now, I'm not saying talent-wise he can't be that all-star player, but from what we've seen from him so far, I think that's going to be the norm, and so he's become an overrated player. Underrated is KJ Hamler.
Really?
I think that KJ Hamler can be better than what we think he's shown.
I like that one. I have a question about the Bradley Chubb. Like, who is overrating Bradley Chubb? That's my question.
I don't know.
I mean, I guess
that was just my answer.
I mean, I guess he did make the Pro Bowl last year. No, 2 years ago. No, last year.
No, he made it last year. Yeah,
last year. Yeah, he made it last year, which was weird.
No, it's the COVID year.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah. I guess, yeah. I could see that. I
think that we hold Chubb to the standard of what he said his rookie year, and I don't know if he can do that again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm saying, like, I think he's a little overrated because I don't think he's going to reach that level again or better.
How about Jerry Jeudy? Overrated?
No, underrated.
Underrated for sure. I mean, he hasn't really. I mean, he was out, a lot last year. And he's behind. In my opinion, he's behind Courtland Sutton and
Timmy P.
And Patrick. So, I thought for sure that when he came out of college, went to Denver, that he would be one. It would be 1-2, or either way, it would be Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, or Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton. That hasn't materialized. So I would say overrated for Jerry Jeudy. Underrated. This may surprise you guys. Underrated would be Devon Williams, running back. I know he had a great year last year, but nobody expected that. And he came out and just, in my opinion, just had a phenomenal rookie year.
Wait, do you think underrated going into this season, or are we talking about last season he was underrated?
Last season. I don't think people expected him to do what he did.
Oh, okay.
And you think Judy's overrated?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think he could have done better.
But even after hearing how he was held back.
Well, that's true. That's true. You make a good point there. Yeah. So maybe throw that equation out. Yeah. You got to okay. So that ruins my whole overrated. So whatever.
So put Bill in timeout.
Okay.
I think Marquette King is my overrated.
Stop it right now.
Underrated, I'm going with Tim Patrick. I mean, I think even with the contract, even with the statistics of not dropping passes, just feels like this guy is not only underrated on the Broncos, but just underrated in the NFL. I mean, he is a true talent, and I'm excited to see how he'll fare this year when the balls are just flying all around the field.
So who's your overrated?
I mean, I was going to go with I was going to go with Chubb also when you were talking about it, just from the sense like maybe it's underachieving. I don't know, because perhaps mainly because of mainly because of injuries, but quite honestly, we've been so irrelevant for the last few years. Is anyone overrated? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't feel like anyone's being blown up. I think Drew Lock was overrated last year.
I was going to say it changed once we made that Russell Wilson trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know if I have necessarily an overrated. I think my closest would legitimately probably be Jerry Jeudy, just because I know I'm not saying his potential isn't there. I'm saying we haven't seen it on the field because of the injuries and because of Shermer and situationally, and that's all you hear about from national media sources in the Broncos. It's all this Jerry, when they talk about Broncos offense coming in the next year, it's never Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton. It's always Jerry Jeudy, and it's he hasn't really done a ton yet. Don't get me wrong, he has the most potential and can potentially be insane, but technically he hasn't done that yet, and so that's a very interesting thing to look at. And I look forward to him to have a blowout year this year, but it just hasn't happened yet. I would say underrated. Oh gosh, there's so many. I like the Tim Patrick one. Josie Jewell is one that people don't talk about enough for some reason. I don't know why people have it in their head that Josie Jewell isn't a good line. He's a solid linebacker. Yeah. He was playing lights out before he got injured last year also. I don't think he gets enough national media attention, but Draymond Jones is a freak. Draymond Jones is an absolute beast. And there's no way, we need to re-sign him, extend him quick before this next year, because I've been hearing that he's also just a monster again. And so it's just we need to re-sign him real quick. I'll actually say Draymond Jones, because I still don't think he gets I know that Broncos community, the innards like to talk about him, but he needs more hype around Draymond Jones.
Yeah, I mean it definitely changed my picks with that trade, because mine would have been overrated is Locke, underrated is Stephen Weatherly. Man, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, the mad scientist. I miss him. He should come back.
So
even if he's on another team, I don't care. Come back anyways. Just leave. Come back to the Broncos.
So what do you guys think of? And I'm shifting to a topic we hadn't discussed prior, but
How dare you?
what do you guys think of the voluntary the players choosing not to come? Like, and I'm really thinking more of a Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
You know, when you have this new offense, you have a new coaching staff, everybody is gelling, and then you have a guy that, and I mean, I was cheerleading for the Broncos to bring him back, and he doesn't show up. He's posting videos of him at a driving range, whether that was taken in real time or not. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think at the driving range, he was with Justin Simmons at that point. So
yeah.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and I think it depends on the why. Like, if you're dealing with injury concerns, like I could see it. There are a lot of players, and I know that like there were some other players. Tom Brady, I think, was one that talked about it, where he has his own off-season schedule of how he does things, and that's what's worked for him every single season. So him not going to OTAs is a normal thing. Then do what you normally do and show up when you need to show up. But if you're just not there because you don't want to be, then I'm not okay with it. But again, I guess it depends on the why.
My concern is this. You have a brand new head coaching staff. You have a brand new quarterback. Well, not brand, but you know what I'm saying, to the Broncos. You have a new quarterback. You have a new offensive coordinator. You have a new head coach. And he was pushing to come back to Denver. He didn't want to leave Denver. And it seems to me that if you're that anxious to want to come back to the team, why not show up? And if you do have injuries, well, then you deal with that with the trainer and whatnot when you get there. But to not show up. What's that?
Stand on the sideline.
Exactly.
I mean, Russell
shows support.
I could be wrong, but didn't Melvin Gordon miss the last 2 years of OTAs as well, like voluntary?
He hasn't been at OTAs for like 5 years.
But this is a different situation.
Exactly.
Like
Not really though, because I believe that when he came to the Broncos his first year, he missed OTAs then too, like the voluntary ones.
Yeah, he did.
So that's what I'm saying.
Like a new day, Mike. I don't know. It just is
But what I'm saying is, like, if what you're doing in the off season is what has been working for you, especially when you're a 30-year-old running back, like you need to continue to do what you've been doing to make it work. Because if you switch it up, you don't know what's going to, and don't take my word for it, because I am not an athlete.
I'm not.
I do not have a schedule. But from hearing other players talk about it, if you have an off-season routine, that's the routine you stick with until it doesn't work.
But doesn't it send a bad message to the rest of the team that, hey, you know what? I can just show up when I want to. That's how I took it. And that doesn't sit well with me.
It just doesn't. Yeah. We're finding like we've broken through. We got that quarterback. The quarterback is flying people to his house in San Diego. They're doing all this behind the scenes stuff. You have this new coach. You have this new offense. You can't show up for 2 hours a day. Like I love Melvin. I think the guy is a huge contributor to this team. But to me, it feels like, all right, they told me I was going to be RB2, so screw it, right? I know history has been like you said, Boggins. I mean, if it's been 5 years that he hasn't shown up, this is different. It's different. Russell Wilson is flying back from Monaco to be at practice today. Like, show up.
If you're asking if I care, no, I don't care. It's. For me, it's a running back, whatever. I understand that it's a new system, but it's like you're still gonna have training camp. You're still gonna have you're gonna catch up. And running back, it's not like the most in-depth thing in the field. I think when it's a big deal, still not even that like that. It just really depends. Like Lamar Jackson not showing up at OTAs, that to me is more of a like. I'd like you to be there. You're the leader of this team. I would like you to be at OTAs, whether you're not, you're just standing on the sideline, whatever. You're participating. You're going over, your chemistry with your receivers. But who knows? Maybe he's throwing not in OTAs, like doing his own thing with his own people and blah blah blah, and bringing them in, like kind of like Russ was doing before OTAs started. Now, Russ, I think, is a different situation because obviously he's brand new to the team, learning the whole entire system, is the leader of the team, and wants to make sure it's known that he's the leader of the team, and he's there for OTAs, he's there for everything, in the building, out the building, blah, 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 blah. He's not a running back. He's not a running back that's going into a 1-year contract that's 30 years old. Like, it's, I personally don't care. It's just like, it's kind of like whatever. Like, he's still going to be there for training camp. I don't think he's going to hold out. I don't know. To me, it's not a big deal.
He's a really smart guy, and I'm not worried about him grasping the offense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worrying about him gelling with the guys, being part of the team, the camaraderie, being part of it from the start to the finish. I just don't see a purpose in not showing up. Is it because they didn't give, that he's making $2.5 million? I don't know. But most other players, I mean, they're less than 5 on a daily basis that haven't been there. So I can't imagine that it sits well with the coaching staff. I mean, do you? I mean,
I just don't think. I think it really just depends. Like, also with Melvin Gordon, like, him and Russ go back, played college together. They're friends. Like, it's not like they don't have a rapport or don't talk to each other. Melvin was just the team. Like, everybody else on that offense is still the same. So it's not like he doesn't already have chemistry with the players. I honestly, it's just the playbook and whether or not he grasped it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and this is per a story from Mike Kliss of last year. Gordon said he has a regimen he likes to stick to. He's not going to be at voluntary OTAs or the voluntary portion of it, but he'll be there for minicamp. So it sounds like it's just he's got that offseason routine that's been working for him, and he's going to stick with it. But and same thing with what Boggins was saying. Like he knows everybody on the team. Even if they're rookies coming in, even if they're free agents coming in, he knows them. He's there at the driving range with Justin Simmons. So I don't think it's gelling with the teammates, and maybe it's different for players. I don't know. I'm going to assume that the players really don't care. Nor do I think that the coaches really care that much. I mean, nothing against Melvin Gordon, but we all know that Williams is RB1 going into the season. So, and this is his second season. So technically, I mean, if you look at it that way, Gordon's basically giving Williams more reps at voluntary OTAs because he's not there. So is it really that bad of a thing that he's not there?
Mike, it's just a commitment. Anyway, I mean, I'm not going to convince you guys otherwise, but it doesn't sit well with me. There's no point in you've had 4 months off, right?
Yeah.
The team hasn't made the playoffs in all this time. Show up, like, just stand there. I mean, anything, be part of it. I mean,
yeah.
I don't get it.
I'm with you, Glenn. I'm totally with you 100%. To me, if he shows up and stands on the sidelines and just shows that he is part of the team. I know he has his own thing that he does, but he should at least show up at least for the 2 hours or whatever, and then go on and go to the driving range or go wherever. But at least show that you want to be part of this team. I mean, not just on game day, but whenever, especially with like I said before, with the new system, with the new coach, with the quarterback, all that, just show up and say, hey, I'm part of this team. I want to be here, and I'm showing up to prove that. You're right. It doesn't sit well with me either.
Two old people sticking together. So here's a question based off of that. Let's say that Denver makes the playoffs. Melvin Gordon has 1,000 rushing yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns. Are you still going to be whining about him not showing up to voluntary OTAs?
Absolutely not.
I'm just asking the question.
Absolutely not.
Mike, you're missing the point about it. It's not that he can't grasp the playbook. The guy's smart. He's had an incredibly successful career. He's been great for the Broncos. I mean, just one of the top players. And that's why I wanted him back.
Mm-hmm.
And I want him to be. Why is it that so few if 30 players didn't show up? I get it, right? So all right, it's voluntary, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has, you don't think Cortland Sutton has a routine. You don't think Tim Patrick has a routine. You don't think, any of these guys have a routine. They all do. But it's the fact that the page has turned. We're like crossing that threshold to what is potentially going to be a huge season. And what kind of, it just says it's a commitment thing, Mike. That's for me, that's what it's about. It's like, it just doesn't feel like this is important enough to bother showing up. I mean, you live in Colorado, right? So it's like, why, you can't
right
drive
down the hallway from Benjamin Albright.
Right.
Just right there.
I'm gonna message that.
Like, ask Melvin why he didn't show up.
Yeah. Anyway.
Exactly.
Anything else that we want to bring up? Anything else we want to talk about? Any other big news that I did not mention yet?
Well, we talked about Billy Thompson, so we got that out of the way.
Yes. I don't need to know what we did talk about. I need to know if we didn't talk about.
I think we're good.
I think that about covers it. Save some things for Boggins and mainly we'll get them some stuff to talk about. So for us, that's going to about do it for us. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, turn on notifications so you can know when we post and when we go live. Also, make sure you tune into our other podcast, the Wild Wild West podcast, on Wednesday at 7:30, 6:30, 5:30, 4:30. The Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast every Thursday at 7, 6, 5, 4. And Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill every Friday at 2, 1, 12, and 11. I'm still not used to saying those numbers. It's very weird. I don't like it. But we do want to thank everybody for joining us on the show tonight. And we will see you tomorrow with the Wild Wild West. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.